So remember, signal starts at the microphone that's in the studio, gets plugged into the studio tie lines in there, but the signal coming out of the microphone is going to be at a very, very low level. So this is going to be at microphone level. So we have to do something to bring this up. Once it leaves the studio tie lines, in our studio, it enters the console by default at the channel input section, specifically the channel mic input, which is this section up here. So because it's coming in at such a low level, we're going to have to turn the signal up. So in your channel input section, we have a couple of different buttons here. We have the 48 volts, which allows us to supply phantom power to our microphones if we need it. We have this button that has a null next to it, which is a phase flip, which you need sometimes, particularly when you're miking the bottom of a snare drum. So we have drive and line. If you're using an external preamp, you'd use line, but most of the time we don't want to press any buttons here unless we're using 48 volts. So to get your level, you go ahead and turn up the knob that says gain. So that is your microphone preamp. We turn up our gain knob until we get to the point where it's at about 0 on our channel input meter. So that's the meter on the left side up here. Looking back at our channel input section, it's good to understand the indicators on your console to make sure that it's working right and you can check your signal flow. So we can see that the channel path goes to the small fader. We have a little indicator here that tells us that. At the small fader, if I've set my levels on the channel input meter, the signal's already at the level where it's supposed to be at. So if I take this and I turn this up to 0, a fader electronically, this is something called a variable resistor. At 0, it is at 0 resistance. So it's not blocking the signal at all. If it's down all the way, it's at infinite resistance. So it's blocking the signal entirely. It's not letting anything through. So on the basic level, we're going to just take this and we're going to put this up at 0. There's also this button that says 0 dB here, and I consider this not to be a good idea. So the whole point of having a fader is sort of twofold. One of them is if all of a sudden the signal gets really loud, rather than going up and reaching for the mic pre, I can just take this and turn this down a little bit. Or we can also sort of play with the saturation if we wanted to. So we can turn the mic pre up a little further and turn the gain down to make up for it. Using the fader is a better approach, in my opinion. So with the small fader, we're just letting the signal pass through. So then it has to exit the console. So it does so on this console through something called a direct out. So on channel 5, that means it's going to go out, line output number 5 of the console. You might double check to make sure that the output is coming from the small fader. So there's an indicator here that tells us that it's coming from the small fader. So this is wonderful. So signal is now going out of the console, and the next step for it is the DAW. It goes from the direct out into the input of the interface for your DAW. In our case, it's a Universal Audio X16. If it's going out direct out number 5, then it's going to come into input number 5 on that. So in my DAW, I need to make sure that the input is set to number 5. And if I wanted to come back to channel 5 on the board in the monitor path, then I have to put the output to output number 5 too. If I want to pass signal, the best way to do it is just to arm the track. Click on this button here and it will pass signal as long as the transport isn't moving. And now we can see that we have signal coming in the DAW. Back on the console, now we see that we have signal coming in on the monitor input side over here on the right, on the meter on that same channel. The monitor input manifests itself right below the channel input. So there's a little section that says monitor here. And this by default is set to the center. Shouldn't have to touch this at all. If you did everything right in your channel path, it should be set to the correct level. Keeping an eye on our indicator lights, note the little green light, which is telling us that signal from the monitor path is now moving on to the large fader. Like I mentioned above, now the signal is coming to my large fader. So I'm going to take my large fader and I'm going to put it up to unity to 0. Now that we've gotten it through the fader, we have to get it out. So we go right above to this button that says LF to mix, large fader to mix. So that will take any of these faders that's up here and send it to my main master bus, to the right side of the console in our case. So you take this and you turn this up to 0. You'll notice that on all the other faders, it goes up a little above it, but on the master, it doesn't. You're never going to have to turn it up. You're always going to have to turn it down. If you did have the ability to turn it up higher, you'd be turning up all of the noise. Now you'll notice we have signal in the upper right-hand corner, and right below that, it says mix. So that is the sum of all the faders that are going to our mix bus, but we are still not hearing it. So you have to tell the console what you want to listen to. So that's what this section is for. So this is called your monitor source select, and you choose mix, which will allow you to actually listen to your mix bus, or your master fader, as they call it sometimes. So you have to choose which set of speakers you want to use. In our case, we only have the mains as far as I know. And so that's where that should be. And then you turn up your monitor level. And so now we can hear the signal going through the speakers. And that is signal flow from beginning to end on our SSL Origin.